For 6 years, she smiled at our family dinners, played the role of the perfect sister-in-law until she broke down in tears and confessed the unthinkable. For 6 years, Olivia had been the heart of our family gatherings. She laughed at our inside jokes, helped set the table during holiday dinners, and played with my children as if they were her own. If someone had asked me a year ago to describe my sister-in-law, I would have said she was kind, thoughtful, and loving, a woman who adored her brother, my husband, Daniel, and embraced me as if I were her real sister. But looking back now, I can't believe how blind I was. Daniel and I had been married for almost 10 years, and in those 10 years, Olivia had always been present, sometimes more than I realized. At first, I loved having her around. She was warm and engaging, the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking in. She never missed a birthday, always had the perfect gift, and somehow knew just what to say when I needed encouragement. Yet, as time went on, little things started to stand out. Subtle, almost imperceptible moments that I brushed aside, telling myself I was being paranoid. Like the way Olivia's smile faltered whenever Daniel and I shared a private joke, or how she always seemed emotional at our anniversary celebrations, blinking away tears while making toasts about how we were the perfect couple. I remember one evening in particular, about a year before the confession that would shatter my world. We were hosting a small family dinner at our house, and Olivia was helping me set the table. As I placed a bowl of mashed potatoes in the center, she sighed deeply. "You and Daniel have it so easy," she said, her voice wistful. "You just fit. Some people search their whole lives for that." I smiled, flattered but slightly uncomfortable. "Well, I think every marriage takes work, but we're happy." She gave a small nod, looking away. "Yeah, happy." It was such an odd response. But I ignored it, focusing instead on the sound of Daniel's laughter from the other room. That's the thing about hindsight. It makes you feel like a fool. For years, Olivia was more than a sister-in-law. She was my friend. She showed up for me in ways that went beyond duty. When I had my first child, she was there every step of the way, offering to babysit, cooking meals, even staying over during sleepless nights. When I struggled with postpartum depression, she was one of the few people I confided in, and she held my hand through it all. And yet, there were moments, small, fleeting moments, that felt off. Like the time we all went on a family vacation to the mountains. And I woke up in the middle of the night to find Olivia and Daniel sitting by the fire outside, talking in hushed tones. When I asked what they were discussing, they both exchanged a glance before Daniel casually said, "Just reminiscing about childhood memories." Or the time I walked into the kitchen and found Olivia holding Daniel's hand. Her expression unreadable. She pulled away the second she saw me, laughing awkwardly as she said, "He just has the warmest hands." I had laughed too, because what else was I supposed to do? Who questions a woman who has only ever been kind? Who assumes betrayal when all you see is love? The final red flag, the one I should have never ignored, was Olivia's reaction when I announced my second pregnancy. It was at another family gathering, and as I excitedly shared the news, everyone clapped and cheered. Everyone except Olivia. Her face went pale, and for a moment, I thought she was about to be sick. She quickly recovered, forcing a smile as she said, "Wow, another baby. That's amazing." Her voice cracked on the last word, but again, I dismissed it. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe she was emotional about becoming an aunt again. Maybe. I had 100 explanations, each one more naive than the last. For 6 years, I believed Olivia was the perfect sister-in-law, the kind, supportive, loving sister I never had. And for 6 years, she played her role flawlessly. Until, one evening, she didn't. I didn't know it then, but everything, the laughter, the shared moments, the deep emotional conversations was all a carefully constructed illusion. An illusion that was about to come crashing down in the most devastating way imaginable. The first real sign that something was wrong came in the form of absence. Olivia, who had once been a constant presence in our lives, suddenly started pulling away. She still showed up for major family gatherings, but there was a noticeable shift in her demeanor. She seemed distant, distracted. Where she once lingered after dinner, laughing and chatting with everyone, she now left as soon as she could, offering half-hearted excuses about work or being tired. At first, I didn't think much of it. People's lives changed. Schedules got busy. But then Daniel started acting strange, too. He was restless, irritable. He checked his phone constantly, sometimes leaving the room to take calls he claimed were from work. At night, he would sit on the edge of our bed, lost in thought, only snapping out of it when I touched his arm. "What's going on with you?" I asked him one night. He blinked, as if he hadn't even realized I was there. "Nothing, just work stress." I wanted to believe him, but a quiet voice inside me whispered that something wasn't right. Then came the night I found the letter. It was an accident, really. Olivia had been over for dinner and had left in a hurry, leaving behind her coat. When I picked it up to hang it properly, a folded piece of paper slipped from the pocket and fluttered to the floor. Curious, I picked it up and unfolded it. The words inside were like a punch to the gut. "Daniel, I can't do this anymore. It's killing me. I love you, but this isn't fair to me, to you, to her. We have to stop. Please." The paper shook in my hands. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I read the words over and over again, willing them to mean something else, willing them to be some kind of misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew exactly what they meant. A cold numbness spread through my body as I sat down, staring at the letter. The truth was there, written in Olivia's own hand. For 6 years, my marriage had been a lie. For 6 years, Olivia had been hiding the ultimate betrayal behind her perfect smiles. And now, I finally saw it for what it was, the cracks in the facade, the deception woven into every interaction. Every conversation, every stolen glance. My world was about to come crashing down, and I had no idea how to stop it. The letter sat in my lap, the weight of its meaning suffocating me. My hands trembled as I folded it carefully, as if I could somehow contain the damage it had already done. My mind reeled with questions, none of which I wanted to answer. How long had this been going on? Did Daniel love her back? Had I truly been so blind? For a moment, I sat frozen in our living room, the dim glow of the lamp casting eerie shadows across the walls. The sounds of my children laughing upstairs felt distant, almost unreal, like they belonged to a different life. A life where I was still blissfully ignorant. But I wasn't ignorant anymore. I forced myself to stand, clutching the letter as if it were a lifeline. I needed to confront Daniel. I needed the truth. I found him in the study, hunched over his desk, staring blankly at his computer screen. He barely noticed me as I walked in. "Daniel." Something in my voice must have caught his attention because he turned sharply, his eyes flickering with concern. "Emma, what's wrong?" I didn't speak. I simply placed the letter in front of him and stepped back, watching as his face drained of color. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. His hands curled into fists before he slowly, hesitantly, picked up the paper. I watched his eyes scan the words Olivia had written, and in that moment, I knew. I knew because I saw the truth settle into his features. Not confusion. Not disbelief. Guilt. I staggered back as if he had physically struck me. "Oh my God, it's true. Emma, please." "How long?" My voice came out strangled, barely a whisper. He shut his eyes, exhaling shakily. "Emma, how long?" I repeated, louder this time, the words almost burning in my throat. Daniel hesitated, but I could see the war inside him, the desperate wish to undo what was already unfolding. But there was no undoing this, no erasing it. 6 years, he finally admitted. The air left my lungs. My knees nearly buckled. 6 years. For 6 years, the man I had built a life with had been lying to me. Every anniversary, every tender moment, every time he had told me he loved me, it had all been wrapped in deceit. I turned away, my stomach twisting violently. "You disgust me. Emma, please, listen to me." "To what?" "We're lies." I spat, spinning to face him. "Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just waiting for Olivia to break first?" He flinched, shame and regret painted all over his face. "I never wanted to hurt you." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Too late for that, don't you think?" His shoulders sagged. "I ended it. A long time ago. Then why does she still love you?" I shot back, my voice trembling with rage. "Why is she still writing letters like this?" Daniel had no answer. He just stared at me, his expression helpless. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't bear to look at him anymore. I turned and stormed out of the room, leaving him standing there, his guilt weighing him down like an anchor. But it wasn't over. Not yet. The next day, we were expected at a family dinner. I had half a mind to skip it, to shut myself in my room and drown in my heartbreak. But something inside me refused to let Olivia get away with this in silence. If she wanted to confess, then she would do it in front of everyone. I went through the motions that evening, pretending everything was fine, though my insides burned with anger. I barely acknowledged Daniel, and he didn't try to push me. He knew better. When we arrived at his parents' house, Olivia was already there, sitting at the dining table, laughing softly with their mother. My stomach twisted at the sight of her so at ease, as if nothing was wrong, as if she hadn't spent the last 6 years betraying me. I met her gaze, and for a moment, something flickered across her face, fear, maybe, or guilt. Either way, she looked away quickly, shifting in her seat. Good. Dinner went by in a blur. My mind too focused on the storm brewing inside me. Then, when the dishes were being cleared, I saw my opening. I placed my glass down and met Olivia's eyes across the table. So, Olivia, I said, my voice deceptively calm, anything you'd like to share with the family? The table quieted. Heads turned toward her, confusion evident on everyone's faces. Olivia swallowed, her hands gripping her napkin tightly. What do you mean? She asked, feigning innocence. I leaned forward. I mean, if you have something to say, if something's been weighing on you, you should probably say it now. Daniel stiffened beside me. Olivia's face turned a sickly shade of white. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered. I smiled coldly and pulled the letter from my purse, laying it on the table for everyone to see. Then maybe you can explain this. Gasps filled the room as everyone's eyes fell on the letter, its damning words on full display. My mother-in-law's hand flew to her mouth. My father-in-law's expression darkened. Olivia looked like she wanted to disappear. Tears welled in her eyes as she shot a desperate glance at Daniel, but he didn't move to save her. Finally, she broke. I'm so sorry, she whispered, voice thick with emotion. The room erupted into chaos. My in-laws bombarded her with questions. Daniel's mother sobbed into her hands. My father-in-law glared at his son as if seeing him for the first time. As for me, I sat back and watched Olivia crumble under the weight of her own sins. She admitted everything. How it started. How she had justified it. How she had loved Daniel for as long as she could remember. And you still love him, I stated. Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. Unbelievable. Tears streamed down Olivia's face. I never wanted to hurt you, Emma. I swear. I stood. Funny. You keep saying that. But here we are. I turned to Daniel, who hadn't spoken since the confession started. And you? Did she mean anything to you? Daniel's jaw tightened. He hesitated, and that hesitation was answer enough. I need some air, I muttered, grabbing my coat and storming out of the house. I didn't stop walking until I was at the edge of the driveway, breathing in the cold night air, trying to steady myself. My life had just imploded in the middle of a family dinner. And the worst part? It wasn't over yet. The night air was crisp, biting against my skin, but I barely noticed. My hands were shaking, my chest heaving as I tried to process everything that had just happened. The weight of betrayal sat heavy in my stomach, a leaden knot of heartbreak and anger tangled together. Behind me, the sounds of voices raised in disbelief and sorrow still drifted from the house. My world had just imploded in front of my in-laws, my marriage laid bare for everyone to see. And now, I was left with the wreckage. A door creaked open, and I tensed, unwilling to face anyone just yet. But it was Daniel. I stiffened as he approached cautiously, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets, his face drawn with guilt. Emma, he said softly, his voice pleading. I turned sharply to face him, arms crossed over my chest, my body a fortress he was no longer welcome in. Don't. Please, he said again, stepping closer. Can we talk? I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, now you want to talk? After I had to drag the truth out of both of you in front of your entire family? He winced. I never wanted you to find out like that. Right. You would have preferred to keep lying to me for the rest of our lives. I snapped, voice laced with venom. His jaw clenched. It wasn't like that. I let out a breath of disbelief. Then tell me, Daniel, what was it like? He sighed, running a hand through his hair, his shoulders slumping. I made a mistake. A terrible one. But I ended it years ago, Emma. I swear. I shook my head, laughing humorlessly. If you ended it, then why did she still think she had a chance? Why was she still writing you love letters? Silence. He had no answer because there was no good excuse. Do you love her? I finally asked, my voice quieter this time, the question burning a hole through my chest. Daniel hesitated, and that hesitation shattered what little was left of my heart. I inhaled sharply, blinking away the sting of tears. That's all I needed to know. Emma, He reached for me, but I stepped back. No, I said firmly, my voice steadier than I felt. You don't get to touch me. You don't get to comfort me. His expression twisted in pain. I never stopped loving you. Then you should have chosen me, I whispered. You should have never put me in this position. You should have been honest with me years ago. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted. His voice raw. I swallowed, my throat tight. You can't. A long, hollow moment passed before I stepped away, the distance between us widening in more ways than one. I need space, I said finally. I need time. And right now, I don't think I want to be in the same house as you. Daniel flinched, but he nodded, accepting my words like a man awaiting his sentence. I'll stay somewhere else for a while. I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. In the days that followed, I was met with an onslaught of reactions from the family. Daniel's parents were horrified. His mother called me crying, apologizing over and over again as if she were the one who had betrayed me. His father, normally a man of few words, had given Daniel an earful that had him looking as pale as a ghost. And Olivia? She disappeared. I heard from mutual friends that she had left town, unable to face the shame of her actions. Part of me thought she was a coward, running away from the mess she had created. Another part of me was relieved. I couldn't bear to see her, to hear her try and justify what she had done. As for Daniel, he moved into a hotel. He didn't push me, didn't beg for forgiveness. He simply waited. But the problem was, I didn't know if I had forgiveness to give. Weeks passed. I threw myself into routine, focusing on work, on the kids, on anything that wasn't the wreckage of my marriage. But healing wasn't linear. Some days, I felt strong, as if I had finally taken control of my life. Other days, I woke up and the grief swallowed me whole, leaving me breathless. I replayed memories over and over again, dissecting them for signs I had missed. The way Olivia always looked at Daniel, the way Daniel's laughter sometimes sounded too careful when she was around. Had I ever really known my husband at all? One night, as I sat in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. Daniel, can we talk? Just talk. Please. I stared at the screen for a long time before sighing and typing back. Me, tomorrow, 6 p.m., at the park. He responded immediately. Thank you. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. Closure? A second chance? I had no idea. All I knew was that I needed to hear him out. One last time. The next evening, I arrived at the park 10 minutes early. It was cold. The autumn wind biting at my skin as I waited. Daniel arrived exactly on time. He looked different, exhausted, thinner, as if the weight of his mistakes had physically drained him. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice careful. I nodded but said nothing. He exhaled slowly. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I need you to know that I regret it all. Hurting you, lying to you, betraying you. I regret everything. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Regret doesn't change what happened. I know, he admitted, but I can't stop loving you, Emma. And if there's even the smallest chance, I want to fight for us. I closed my eyes briefly, willing my heart to listen to reason. Daniel, I said softly, I don't think I can come back from this. He stilled. I don't hate you, I continued. I wish I did. It would make this easier. But I don't. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. His throat bobbed, and he looked away, his jaw tightening. I understand. Silence stretched between us, a goodbye forming in the spaces left unspoken. Finally, he nodded. I love you, Emma. I smiled, sad and small. I know. And then, for the first time in a long time, I walked away. Not out of anger, not out of pain, but because I finally understood I deserved more. I deserved a love that didn't come with secrets, a love that didn't make me question my worth, a love that was whole, untainted, and real. And maybe, just maybe, I would find that love again. But not with Daniel. Not anymore. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking Reddit cheating stories happening around you.